welcome back to another video. I am Emily, otherwise known as Shamanism, otherwise known as M Organically. You can call me anything, just don't call me late for dinner. Welcome back to another video. Today, the subject of today's video is something I'm actually pretty excited about to share. And when I first discovered this topic and I was like, maybe I should make a video about that, I honestly wasn't super stoked about it. And honestly, now that I have dug into it, I'm really thinking that it doesn't even so much matter like the impact of this video, although of course that is something that I want to have with this video. However, having said that, it was just also an interesting sort of life review to look back at some, well, to be honest with you, I guess in my life previous to now, having actually made this video, I hadn't really thought of per se the lessons of my particular life. And it's funny how sometimes just when you're doing something else, you end up having ideas for another thing that you're doing, which by the way is why, as a side note, hello, editing Emily here again. I would like to point out for the record that I am now acutely aware of the fact that I said should a few times in this video, and I would like to just say, please don't let me should on you. So I am aware, and I could have gone and chopped up the video, but I decided I would rather leave the message overall. So please just try to ignore the shoulds and don't let me should on you. And hey, don't should on your friends either. Bye. Okay, back to the video. Everything. You, yes, you should always, and I do mean always, follow two things. What are those two things, you're asking me? I can hear you saying them right now. What? Huh? First thing, you should always follow your joy. And I know that that's super cliche. I've heard it literally my entire life growing up. And I tell you that as a now 39-year-old woman, that simple concept is so important. So 3 things that I wish I knew when I was 20. The first thing, and fun fact, I have stories to go along with probably all of these. So hang tight. Get a cup of something lovely to drink, cold, hot, whatever your preference, and sit down for a little story time and chit chat with me. So the first thing, piece of wisdom, tip, thing I wish I had known when I was 20 was that your social circle does not mean that you are broken and does not mean that you're worthless. Now, I know you might be thinking to yourself, but Emily, you don't seem like you particularly think that you're worthless. Well, let me tell you. What is external a lot of the time, well, frankly, and I don't think I'm alone in this, is not necessarily what this person actually feels inside. And so believe it or not, despite the fact that many of you know me as pretty lighthearted person, pretty comedic most of the time, I had this false belief, and this is why I'm bringing this here, because these were, by the way, these 3 tips, or whatever you want to call them, the 3 lessons of my life, actually, it's not even tips, it's not even cliche, like, oh yeah, let's give them 3 tips. No, these are literally 3 important lessons from my life that I wish I had known when I was 20, and I really hope that you guys, whoever listens to this, can take them on board, because they're not just, tips like, oh, let me throw together 3 random things that might help somebody, but they're just completely random. No, I actually sat down and thought about more of the major life things that I've learned and things that would most certainly, in my opinion, help all of you at any stage, even if, quite frankly, even if you're after 20 years old and perhaps have not realized some of these things, I hope this video can help. So the first thing is that your social circle is not, I repeat, and I cannot say this enough, and I'm gonna impose a stop sign because just stop. Your social circle does not determine your worth. And yeah, we'll leave that at that for now. Your social circle does not mean that you are broken. It does not mean that there's anything wrong with you. It doesn't mean really anything. Your social, actually I could go on a really long tangent about this, but I won't. And I won't. So anyhow, when I was growing up, so there's story time to accompany that little lesson, if you will, is that when I was younger, and I hope that this is maybe one of the last times I ever tell this story, because quite frankly, it's not a story that I need to tell anymore. I don't know if you can relate. Sometimes we have stories that we tell that helped us to develop, and we can continue to tell them because they're not something that is so intensely charged, let's say, with emotions that it really could negatively or anything impact us. The social circle thing, guys, so my story time to that is yours truly, despite the fact that I am a very happy person by nature. When I was younger, I don't know the exact normal schooling range that this would have been in, because I, at this time of my schooling, was in a smaller private school, which interestingly kind of only dealt with a small age range of people. Anyway, if you're familiar with Montessori schooling, you'll know what I mean. But I was at a Montessori school, and I had this group of 4 friends. I'm not going to name them or anything, and it's not even honestly really important what their names were. But the point is that I had this very close group of friends. And I'm not going to tell the whole, there's no reason for me to go into the specifics. Long story short, I had taken my best friend at the time on a holiday. And again, really minimizing the story just for the sake of time, because it could be a whole really long thing, but the minor details aren't that important. So anyway, this gal and I who had gone, my family had decided to take her on a trip with us because, like I said, she was my best friend. So we went on this trip, and now on this trip, my friend was acting really strange, and I am an empath, which I'm sure that if you follow my channel, you know by now that I am an empath at least. Anyhow, I was worried. I'd never seen anyone in my life react that way, mentally, behaviorally, and quite frankly, I didn't know what to do. Now, I know that a lot of you might come for me after I tell you this, but all I can really say about it is just that when I took this action at the time, now mind you, I was very small. I was like maybe 10 to 13-ish range. I just wanted to see what was going on with her. I wanted to know if she was okay. And when I say she was acting strange, she was acting very strange. And quite honestly, to this day, I've never seen anyone behave like that. It was her behavior just completely shifted from what it was. And I guess because we're two very different types of people, which is totally cool and fine, that's what makes the world go round, I, in my little person's brain, thought, and I purely say this because it was from pure heart and intentions that I did this. And even though I know that the action was completely wrong, of course, I know this now. But back then, what I thought was, okay, maybe I can get a little insight as to, because I was very confused and honestly kind of distressed. Not even kind of, I was distressed by the fact that, for example, my friend was going to bed really early. Like, her and I were sharing a room because we were on vacation, we were teenagers. And like, literally, I remember it was the strangest experience for me because we were all like eating dinner down in the hotel restaurant or something. And when I say hotel, by the way, guys, it was like a very chill hotel, you know, we were like, I don't know, a B&B, something, but don't think high class B&B, like just a chill B&B. My family, when we travel like, we're about, you know, seeing the place itself, the natural occurrences, hang out with the people. We're not really like typical tourists. So we don't stay in these big fancy places or anything like that. Anyhow, the point is, she would like take herself away from dinner and like go to bed it was not even 8 o'clock. And like I said, at that age, I didn't understand why anyone would be doing that. So anyway, long story long, I made the decision, right or wrong, don't come for me. I've already prepared you guys. Don't come for me. I already warned you this was not the best story, obviously, hence how there's a lesson in it about social circles not being relevant to our own worth. So long story long, my younger mind thought that the way to get insight about what was happening with her to her, because she wouldn't talk to us, I should specify. She wouldn't talk to me and tell me what was actually going on or whatever. And I, in my, honestly, naivety, and you can think that I was being malicious, but genuinely, in my head, I was just naive. Anyhow, decided, stupidly, to read a page of her diary and see if I could figure out what was going on in her head. Please don't come for me. I know it was a mistake, by the way. It was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I was just young, and I genuinely didn't know. So I guess the half tip would be, if you're ever looking for insight with your friends, please just talk to them and be more persistent about the talking. Don't do something sneaky like I did. That is one of my biggest mistakes of my life. So anyway, long story short, or long, when we got back, she was very distraught over the trip, and I didn't figure it out. What happened was she walked in on me while I was reading her diary, which I understand, of course, why she was upset over that. And when we came back from the trip, she basically told, and I'm not saying this was obviously not a lie, but at the time I genuinely did not know how to face my own responsibility for things. And I also was just honestly kind of smothered in embarrassment because I felt really terrible that I had, once I kind of realized what I had actually done and that what like an incredible invasion of privacy that was, I felt awful. And unfortunately, it was like, you know how they say too little too late? Yeah, my friends, so essentially she told my other three friends or four friends, whatever. I had a pretty small clique. And I know that for some of you, it might not make sense how this happened, but for some of you, perhaps it will. But I lost all of them, just like that. They all, and I'm not saying that she inflated the story, whatever it was, either the story was bad enough for them that they felt like it was worth walking away from me, or they thought I was just such a piece of crap, whatever it was. Now, the context for that, and the reason, again, that I'm telling this story in pertinence, is that even, anyhow, pertaining to social circles not being equivalent to your worth, is that what happened for me as a young adolescent, like I said, I was young then. And what ended up happening for me was I just completely internalized this. So what happened was she told my friends were like, we hate you now. We don't want to talk to you. And there's a whole long thing, you know, there was this little hideout that we had down, again, complicated, like private school is not a typical experience, but we had down at the end of where we would eat lunch, there was this hillside and you could go down, and at the bottom of it was like a woodsy dirt road with some trees that we were kind of allowed to go as long as people could see us, you know, to keep an eye on us, make sure we weren't getting into real trouble. And we had this, I know how silly this sounds, but hear me out. We had this little fort down on the woods, and my friends and I would go and hang out there because most of us were the rejects, honestly, and we didn't fit in with most of the school, and so we just went and we would eat our lunch down there. After all this happened, they basically stopped allowing me, and I know how silly that sounds now, but they stopped allowing me to come down. They were snickering at me and making fun of me, and essentially I became very paranoid. I was really depressed, and as a younger person, I had no idea how to process those feelings of being shunned and disconnected. And quite honestly, I wasn't concrete enough, or whatever you can say about it, in myself to be like, yeah, well, you know, F you guys, I don't care, I'll find new friends. No, I was like, that is my world. And it genuinely almost broke me. Like, I know that this is not this is not the highlight of the story, but it's a very important part. And it's just that that's the first time that I experienced, okay, trigger warning, I guess. If talk of unaliving, I'm not going to be here for long, but for a minute here, maybe you should tune out if unaliving upsets you. But that was the first time that I truly experienced like a desire to unalive myself. And I say that only because I was so young and I had no way of processing these feelings. So I guess to that end too, I would just encourage you that if for some reason you're watching this and you're that age, or even if you're not that age and you're having some kind of social struggle like that, just know inherently that things that happen to us definitely do not necessarily mean that we are the issue. Like sometimes it is just the way we learn something. Sometimes it's, you know, it can be so many things. And I guess I don't even know if younger me would have been able to take this advice on. I'm doing this, by the way, as if I'm talking to younger me and you, in case this can help. I don't know if younger me would have been able to understand and hear that she has this value and that her friends, her social circle, and what she feels, her feeling accepted is not the be all end all and should not determine her. I know I'm shitting on myself here, but it shouldn't determine your value, and it does not determine your value. And I tell that story to say that if you're basing your worth or your value on, quite honestly, anything external to yourself, that's a mistake. And I don't say that to be cruel. I say that to wake you up and maybe shake you a little, because I was really young when I went through all that. And I guess what I'm saying is because I went through this whole process between then and now, crazy as that sounds, that's like 30 years, guys. This whole thing, that whole time, I was basically still learning that I am worthy and that external circumstances don't define or determine who I am. That's been a long process. So I share that first tip, that first suggestion, that first lesson of your social circle does not determine your worth. That's the first thing that I deeply wish I had known when I was 20 years old. The second thing, very important for me at least, and probably for lots of us, honestly, is that money. Now, if y'all know anything about me, which some of you might not, my family upbringing, honestly, was pretty much lack mindset for the majority of my life. And it's only in like the last, say, 3 to 5 years that I've really understood like sort of more of the process of how you actually make things happen, and allowed myself to understand that the money game, if you can call it that, it's not a fun game to play, but we all have to play it because we're in this world, and for better and worse, the world works around money. You know, if you don't have money, you can't eat, you can't have a shelter. You know, there's so many things that we are unable to do or have if we don't have money in our life. Having said that, the biggest lesson that I learned, that I wish that I knew this when I was 20. My goodness, if I knew this when I was 20, guys, I'd be in such better shape probably. So I impart this to you with the hopes that it really makes a difference. Money, and really hear me here, because this is not just something I'm saying casually and like, oh, maybe that'll help. No, these things, like I said, these 3 things are genuinely, I've like sat down and been like, what are 3 things from my life that I would actually want to share with younger me, and I wish I had gotten a head start on. So your social circle doesn't determine your worth, and money, I know this sounds nuts, it's more of a mind game than even about the cash or whatever in your pocket. If you're having resistance, I hear you, I feel you. Let me explain. For, again, most of my life, my family, me, my internal sort of set point for a long time was, and I know this will make a lot of you cringe, much like it made me cringe steadily growing out of this belief, but a lot of us, and tell me when, not if, this triggers you, when you heard this wonderful phrase, money doesn't grow on trees. Now, I don't know, I don't think I'm alone in that, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who heard that growing up. The problem with that statement is twofold. Now, again, I can hear you. Do you want to know what those 2 things are? The one is ridiculous because, and for those of you who don't know, I also garden, so I'm not a complete like numpty when it comes to plants and trees. Y'all, don't know if this is going to break any bubbles, but guys, money is literally from trees. Fact number 1, literally. Money. Where does that come from? Paper. Where does paper come from? A tree. So anyhow, money, it's a tree. And I know that it's tempting to think that in order to acquire money, we have to do XYZ thing, that it's a specific thing. And what I want to share about money, this is the second thing, is that it's more of a mind game. And I know how nuts that sounds. You're like, no, it's not, but it is. And the thing is, because if you don't have that, what I've learned, for me at least, and this may apply to you, so I'd offer this to you as well. For me, my issue came in with again, I say the mind, the thinking about money. Because I'd heard it for so long, that's awful saying that I hope fades out and one day children never hear, because money does actually physically grow on freaking trees. And the fact that we tell kids that is not only the worst lack conditioning I have ever experienced and felt intimately and whatever in my life, but is just the biggest disservice to everybody, including our kids, because I don't even know if I can think of how to explain it. Like, you're breaking the imagination that your kids naturally have, which, and here's the hilarious part, is the thing that may indeed allow them to make the money. Now, let me share this with you. This is going to break some of your minds, so hang tight. One of the biggest aspects, if you haven't learned this already with money, is your mindset about it. It isn't like actually necessarily about how you're acquiring money. one of the, seriously, the most important like potential aspect of money is your relationship with it. It's the dynamic of how you feel about it. It's how you literally think about money. It's like, do you feel like you have money to give away to this, that, and the other? Do you feel abundant? And I know that that word is thrown out to a nauseating extent. Ask yourself though, like how, it's a combination of all of these things. And what I found it is though, above all the practicality of working a 9-to-5 job, what I have found is that if you want money to flow into your life, you need to release your mind. And you might overlook your mind entirely, honestly, because the way we usually get into it is kind of this mental hamster wheel with which we usually don't know that we're on for so long, which is just kind of like we get into these habits of wake up, go to work, you know, come home, eat, sleep, repeat kind of thing. And that's a big disservice to us, because what has allowed me to improve my relationship with money is detaching this expectation, I guess. It didn't really feel like expectation, but this, I don't know, there's just a big pressure that comes with money. And when you feel like you're working, and I'm going to use this phrase just for context's sake, but when you feel like you're slaving away and then the energetic exchange that you're getting in return is like not enough or isn't there, it just doesn't feel good. That is why, in my opinion, so many people sour to money itself, and why we end up, many of us, having these negative relationships with money, because our parental units or guides or whoever it was as we were growing up told us, you know, most of us, lots of us that I've encountered heard the money on trees statement. And I just wonder to myself somehow, I genuinely sit here and I scratch my head and I go, how the hell did that come about? Because money is 100% an actual tree. We're talking literal science here, people. And for those of you who maybe don't know, I'm a science nerd in terms of like, if there's an interesting science thing to support something that I'm saying, I'm probably going to find it because I love science. It's fucking cool. Pardon my French. Anyway, it's cool. I don't know how people add that sound effect. I'll figure it out one day. I can just make it for now. Meanwhile, sorry, comedic tidbits. It's inevitable when you watch my channel, guys. You're going to get the comedy just seeping out. It's like, it's just in there. So just to recap, because I know I've talked a lot in this video and probably I will end up cutting some ers, and the extra crap out of here. But if I don't, anyway, the recap is your social circle doesn't freaking determine your worth. That's the first thing I wish I knew when I was 20. The second thing is that money is more of a mind game than anything else. It's not necessarily about how hard you work. It's actually more about how aligned you are with what it is you're doing for income, and how good, I know, how good you feel when you're doing it. The better you can feel and the less kind of attached you are to whatever it is that you're doing, the more likely you are to find that money flows. And the third and final thing that I want to impart to you guys, and what is tied into that and is essentially what I was leaving you with there, is that, and this was one of the it's still something honestly that I still struggle with at times. Not often, but at times. And it's one of the best ways that I personally have found works for me to manifest things in my life is releasing the attachment or the expectation that something's coming. It sounds counterintuitive, and it also works. So what I have found works for me, and I so wish I'd known this at 20, because me at 20 had my goals, I was very attached to them. Let's just say that. And I have learned as I've aged and grown that releasing the attachment, that actually not being attached, like, for example, let's say there's a car you want. Great. This is what I've learned. So I hope it helps. It may not work. Everybody is different. What helped me a lot with the concept of releasing attachments to things, or to understand that manifestation of honestly anything requires a level of attachment, I needed to kind of experience that. So when I say that, I know that it's not the easiest thing to do mentally. Like when we want something, like, okay, so let me create an example. Let's say you want to get a car. What I misunderstood about the law of manifestation, or whatever, about manifestation in general in the beginning, was that I thought that the way that it worked was essentially, let's say you have a car that you want, you lay out all the details of the car, And then one of my biggest mistakes was that I would then hyperfixate on the car. I would like dream about the car. I would be thinking about the car constantly, just car, 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 car. Now, the trouble with that is that if that's a method that you think will lead to you manifesting the thing, it's funny because it won't. And I'll tell you why. It's because, well, I don't know how to explain this in a very tangible way. I like to make analogies that make things very like touchable and relatable and understandable. I don't really have a good one for this. But what I realized is that if you've ever, I don't know, held an animal, does not apply to all animals, but like for me, I had to catch this bunch of birds when I was younger. I know that sounds really strange. Story time for another time. And the thing with birds is if you hold them too tightly when you're holding them, they freak out. Of course, any animal would freak out and panic if you start to like squeeze them. So if you're, say, going to pick up a bird to release it or something, and you're squeezing them really tightly and you know you're not attached, you're like, I don't want to let go of you, bird. You can kill that thing. You can strangle it. The energy isn't open. It's not flowing. It's constricted. And the reason I share this is that releasing your attachment, it was such a huge thing for me, guys. I didn't even realize, like I knew that I was attached, but I didn't even realize how much attachment really to any goal. If you are really attached, like you're like if it's something, for example, here's another good example. A lot of people are like, I cannot wait to quit my 9-to-5. When I quit my 9-to-5, then no. Please listen. If I can impart another thing kind of alongside it with the release attachment, it's really like release the if, when, then thing. I also, don't wait for when. Do the thing. That's my little side tidbit to share. Don't wait. Don't freaking wait to do stuff. Just do it because you enjoy things. And don't wait for the whens. Like, don't wait to change the 9-to-5 job before you go on the vacation. Freaking plan the vacation and then ease your way out of the 9-to-5 job or something. Do you know what I mean? So often the biggest thing that kind of overreaches all of these, honestly, and I know that sounds really simplistic, even despite these 3 things that I've shared with you guys, 3 things I wish I knew when I was 20 that I didn't know and I've taken 30 whatever years to learn. I'm sharing them because I want to make a difference to someone else, because this genuinely took me the majority of my life thus far. And I know for a fact that if someone can actually hear this information now, if they are 20 or pre-20 or whatever, they can learn how these things can come easier. And I figure wherever we can impart things that make someone else's life easier for less struggle, why not do that? So what I learned was that this ridiculous attachment, which is very much like holding a bird too tightly and like essentially killing the thing, is that if we can, so my experience of it is the best way to manifest. And now this again may or may not work for you, but for me, it's first step is you go and you write what you want down in as much detail as you possibly can and really go deep with the detail. However, the huge freaking caveat to that, warning, that's what caveat means if you aren't familiar with Latin, sorry. Releasing attachment doesn't just, it applies to literally everything. The more that you are attached to your goal, by which I mean the more you're thinking about it, the more you're at, and sounds a little counterintuitive because there's kind of a fine line dance we do between releasing attachment too much, where we just like, well, actually, there is no such thing as too much, because if we were easily able to go, okay, this is the thing that I'm trying to manifest, and we did it all in super specifics, and then we just like turned off our brain, put that paper down, walked away, and trusted, then a lot more of us would have a lot easier time manifesting, including myself. The problem that I've seen over and over with myself and others is that we want something so intensely that what we end up doing is having this like laser targeted focus. And if you've ever seen like somebody have a staring contest with you, or even actually, here we'll do a fun test. This will be fun. If you've ever sat with someone long enough, like they make you, the eye contact becomes uncomfortable. Like, let me just look into your eyes for a second here. Are you uncomfortable yet? The point is, if someone like makes that intense eye contact with you, and I'm sorry if I triggered anybody on that, but is that, what do you feel when I'm staring at you like that? you maybe feel two things. Either you probably feel the love radiating for me, or you feel what I think you felt, which was what I kind of intended for you to temporarily feel, which is an extreme discomfort and the urge to break the eye contact, the urge to move away from that, right? That's resistance, or that's just like the repulsive factor that happens when you're trying that hard to manifest. It's like staring at someone like that. Like, you're just waiting. Just waiting. That's too intense focus, by the way. It is the releasing of that. And like I said, if we were just able as humans to like write it down in detail and then just go, okay, boop, I'm turning off my brain. I forget about that thing. It's over there. I trust the universe. I know that thing is coming. And then we just went on with our day and focused on anything else. That's like the best way to get anything in your life. So anyway, this video has been ridiculously long. However, like I said, this was not just casually thrown together things for a video. This was 3 things I wish I knew when I was 20 that are distilled down to the 3 very important things that I wish I had known then. And that I hope, genuinely hope and intend that whoever comes across this, if you haven't learned this, that you then now have some new ways to approach, you have someone else's insight and many years of experience to save yourself that trouble. And I hope it helps. I really hope it helps, because these are genuinely some of the biggest lessons of my life. And just to recap, because I don't know if any of you are like me, but this applies even when I watch other folks' videos. Like, I often have to get them to recap for me because I will just get so absorbed in their stories that I forget what the whole point of the video was. So just a recap for those of you who are like me. 3 things I wish I knew when I was 20 that I would go back and tell myself if I could are: 1, honey, your social circle does not freaking determine your worth. You are worthy no matter if you have 1 friend or 0 friends or less than any friends or whatever. You are worthy. You deserve to be here, period. Money is a mind game. It is less about any of the physicality of it and more about letting go of this and trusting the flow and trusting equal energy exchange. That's what money is actually about. And last but certainly not the least, in fact, very important, thing number 3, release your attachment when you'd like to manifest something. One of the most important aspects you can do is forget about it. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm sure lots of you have heard set it and forget it. And that's where that comes from. Easier said than done, I know. So that is 3 things I wish I knew when I was 20. Please do share the video if any of this was helpful to you at all. If you know anyone who would be helped by any of these things, which is probably somebody you know, please do share. Ding the bell so that you know if any new videos come out, which is, by the way, daily. And subscribe. It is totally free, by the way. So just for those of you who don't know this, there are 2 functions of YouTube. The first is that you can subscribe to someone's channel. This is never something that will cost you money. It is 100% free. And then the second option, and I think this is where the confusion is coming in, is that there's also an option to join someone's channel. That's the new thing, newish thing. And the difference with that is that when you join someone's channel, yes, that is the moment where you are paying $5 a month to basically subscribe to their channel. That's why it's kind of a misnomer. Subscribing to someone on YouTube is free and helps support your favorite content creator. Whereas if you want to join them, then you are literally monetarily supporting them. That's the difference. So just so that you all know, subscribing to people's channels is totally, totally free. So anyway, long story long, longest story the longest. So now that you know, it's totally free to subscribe. So share the video if you thought it was helpful. If you know anyone who it was going to be helpful for, feel free to subscribe. Not a pressure, but also completely free. And I will see you guys on the next one, which will be tomorrow. Or I will see your beautiful faces on the next Thursday for the next episode of Talking Thursday with yours truly. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I will see you for the next one. Bye! Remembering what I was going to say. Brain fart, blah, blah, blah. Cut this. Oh my God, I don't remember what I was saying. Y'all love me, please. Please love me back. For some reason, there is this bizarre misconception about YouTube that subscribing to someone's channel costs you money. Let me just clear that up really quickly in case anyone is wondering. The way that works is YouTube has sort of two functions as a channel holder. The first function is, yeah, this is hopefully